us now from Capitol Hill, Republican Senator from Oklahoma, Senator Tom Coburn. Senator, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. I'm not upside down.
You're not?
No,
okay.
I'm standing straight up.
Well, very good. Let me ask you about another guy that said he was going to stand straight up until he could stand no longer, or until Harry Reid told him, hey, get off the floor. We were talking about your colleague, Ted Cruz. You had some pretty tough words for Ted Cruz, said he misled your constituents and made the work of young staffers in your office much harder. Tell me, what are your thoughts about Ted Cruz and what he did
What's he doing?
On the House floor and Senate floor, excuse me?
I think what he did was great. He actually spent some time talking to the American people about the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, and the problems with it. My problem with the strategy is show me where you get 67 votes in the U.S. Senate to get rid of and defund Obamacare. You know, that's the problem with the strategy. The problem with politics is if you create expectations you can't fulfill, that leads to disappointment. And our biggest problem in our country now, Joe, is the fact that people don't have any confidence in our future. They don't have any confidence in our leadership. They don't have any confidence in the politicians. A lot of the institutions they don't have confidence in. And we need to have a leadership that pulls us back together and restores confidence rather than divides us. And, I'm all for changing the Affordable Care Act, eliminating it, and doing something that's more transparent, more market-oriented. But to create the impression that we can actually defund Obamacare when the only thing we control, and barely, is the U.S. House of Representatives is not intellectually honest. And so what it does...
And it also obviously, and I've heard this from a lot of my friends in the House and the Senate, it put people who actually support the defunding of Obamacare in a terrible position in that phones would ring in their offices nonstop, and your constituents would demand that you do things that are just impossible because, as even Ted Cruz admitted at the end, Republicans didn't have the votes to do this. So, it seemed to me that he made everybody's life, supposedly on his side, much more difficult.
I'm finishing up 9 years in the Senate, and nobody has a higher conservative rating than I do. And I'm now no longer a conservative, according to the standards that have been set by the expectation of this process. And I'm getting all sorts of emails from people that have supported me because they've been totally misled about what's possible. Do people not think if I could change Obamacare, I'd do it in a minute? It's the disappointment that we have put a short-term goal with lousy tactics ahead of being honest with the American people, and that's what we don't need. We need integrity in government and speaking the truth. I'd love to get rid of Obamacare, but I don't see a path forward to doing that until the president's out of office.
Chuck Todd.
Senator, are you at all involved in any negotiations on what the continuing resolution, the budget bill that the Senate's going to pass back to the House? Senate leadership reached out to you. Is there going to be are they going to try to get Republicans like yourself to sign on to something temporarily, offer you a sweetener of some sort?
Well, Chuck, first of all, going back to the polling they showed before, I've been saying all along when we're talking about this, we're not talking about the things that Americans recognize as true. The government wastes at least $500 billion a year. I can give you specifics to 250 of it in the discretionary budget, 250 billion. So there's not going to be a CR I vote for because I don't think CRs are the way to run a government. I think it's terrible.
Money, actually, isn't CRs?
It costs more money. It's terrible.
It costs more money to do it, right?
It costs more money. It's terrible for our managers at these agencies because you don't allow them to make good decisions in terms of planning. We've got wonderful federal employees at almost all these agencies, and what we do is we put them in handcuffs with CRs. So it's a terrible way to run the government. I don't vote for CRs. There can't be a sweetener that gets me unless the CR is totally cutting spending and creating spending for the whole rest of the year and directing that spending and giving some flexibility to the managers to actually make good decisions. The great thing about the sequester, even though it's a terrible way to cut, is the necessity created a whole lot of innovation in these agencies, and it's amazing the things they got rid of that they didn't need.
Juliana.
Yeah, Senator, I want to ask you a question about the numbers that we saw in our Bloomberg poll and looking past the CR to the debt ceiling fight. Do you think that 61% Americans should have an expectation or a right to think that there should be negotiations around further cuts connected to the debt limit fight?
Absolutely. Look, we still have at least $80 billion a year in fraud in Medicare. They shouldn't expect us to not borrow that $80 billion from people who our children are going to have to pay the money back by us not doing our jobs. The problem with Washington is Congress. And it's Congress not doing the oversight on all the waste, just take, for example, we have 47 job training programs for the non-disabled. When you add all the rest of the job, we have over 100. We're spending $30 billion a year, and nobody's oversighted one of them, and most of them don't work. So there's $30 billion a year you're blowing. We're keeping people employed in the job training industry, but we're not training people for life skills that will give them an income. And yet there's no oversight, no reform, and I can give you 165 of those sets of duplicative programs that the GAO has outlined. I got to give the president credit. His budget this year at least addressed a few of those issues that GAO has raised. Congress hadn't addressed any of them.
All right, Senator Tom Coburn.
The man who, over the past 9 years, has had the most conservative rating in the United States Senate.
There you go. Senator, thank you.
Have a good morning.
Now defined as a rhino in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I think that's...
Yeah, he's in trouble there. He praised the president.
Hey, by the way,